Okay, thank you, Professor Urega, and thank you, Professor Martin and Mrs. Sandra Mekele, all of colleagues. Uh, Good evening, everyone. I hope that you all are good this evening, and I feel that this evening is very hot for me. Yeah, I think it is like in Jakarta, maybe 31 degrees. Yeah. So that's why I didn't bring my jacket here. So I would like to talk about movements. That Indonesian Islamic modernism movements along the last 50 years. So from 1970s until 2020, in the context of their response to Western modernity and the existence of post-colonial mentality. So this is my focus, my research focus. So as we know that Islam is the majority of religions, 2024 data show that Islam is practiced by 87% of the total population of Indonesia. So it is about maybe more than 240 million are Muslim in Indonesia. So in anthropological view, there are many Indonesian Islams. There are urban Islam, coastal Islam, syncretic Islam, or elite Islam, secular Islam, liberal Islam, as well as ordinary people Islam. I mean that their understanding as well as the articulation and expression of Islam little bit different among these typologies of Islam. So in the context of understanding Islam, there are also many typologies. There are modernist Muslim, traditionalist, neo-modernist, liberal, post-traditionalist, revivalist, neo-revivalist, Salafi, Wahhabi, Shiite, and some others, I think. So that's why when we talk about Indonesian Islam, we must be careful which Islam, because there are many Islam. So it is like a one Islam with many interpretations. We also must remember that Indonesian Islam, both culturally and interpretively, is quite different from Islam as understood and practiced in the Middle East. But here, my lecture only focus on the movement of modernist Muslim. So, I mean that I don't discuss about traditionalist Muslim. I don't discuss about, like post-traditionalist Muslim or neo-repipalist Muslim, but only focus on modernist Muslim. Of course, Indonesia is modern democratic country. It has many modern institutions and a modern education system. But I still see a problem between Islam and Indonesian modernity as part of Western modernity. For example, there are still many conservative Muslim, even from wealthy and educated Muslim group, who want Indonesia to become a Sharia state, in the sense what happened in the Middle Ages. Especially maybe they would like to imitate it, something like Pakistan or Saudi Arabia. A survey of the Center of Islam and Society of my campus in 2021, there are around 26% of Indonesian Muslim who want to total practice of Islamic Sharia in public life. So if you see that there is 100 million people, so there are 26 million people would like to to establish the Sharia in the level of in the state level. So another example, a very popular Muslim cleric, a very popular Muslim preachers recently shocked the Indonesian public by establishing a claim that taxes were illegal in Islam. He argues against the concept of modern nation state by referring to some religious texts in the 7th century. So this is also, that as I told you before, that there is still problem between Islam and modern people in Indonesia. There are poor responses of post-colonial societies against the Western modernity in post-colonial theory: mimicry, hybridity, and ambivalence, critical adaptation, and resistance. Bennett classifies four typologies of Muslim responses to modernity: traditionalist, neo-traditionalist, radical revisionist, modernist, and Esposito also classifies four divisions of responses: progressive, traditionalist, neo-traditionalist, and radical revisionist. So I think that mostly historians and sociologists agree that the 1970s were a time of springtime of Islamic revival in many Muslim countries after 40 or 50 years of independence from Western colonialism. So in Indonesia itself, since Suharto, President Suharto, I think this is President Suharto when he was young, was appointed as the second president in Indonesia in 1968. He immediately launched an ambitious project, namely developmentalism and modernization of Indonesia in all aspects. And now we will discuss about six modernist movement, as we see here. So they are neo-modernist, revivalist, modernist, and so on. So for the first group, neo-modernist or liberal modernist, it began in 1970 until 1990s. It is the period of the emergence of Nurcholish Madjid renewal. So Nurcholish Madjid, I think he is the legend of Indonesian Islamic revival from 1970s until today. The renewal of Islamic thought whose content is leaping behind the traditional Islam for the sake of heading toward the modern Islam. So the keyword of Majid is modernization, rationalization, and secularization of the views and achievement of Muslim intellectual freedom, idea of progress based on Islamic teaching. So in another word, that the keyword for Majid Reform Project are how to contextualize Islam in the light of contemporary challenges. So for him, Islam is fully compatible with modern values, as well as pluralism and religious tolerance, equality of all human beings, and politicizing Islam. And the second group in the 1990s, so I call them as progressive modernists or revivalist modernists. So this group, that they established the Muslim Modernist Organization. We call it the Alliance of Indonesian Muslim Intellectual, or ICMI in Indonesia, Ikatan Cendekiawan Muslim Indonesia. Some of them are fellows and exponents of the teaching of Majid. In general, they are graduated of well-known campuses in the West. They are, of course, technocrat and bureaucrat in the New Order regime. They have a vision. They have a vision of developing a modern Muslim society or a modern Muslim middle class. So this is for the first time in Indonesia in 1990s. They established the first modern Syariah bank in Indonesia, Bank Muamalat. I think now Muamalat Bank has dozens of branches in a lot of provinces in Indonesia. And they established the first modern Islamic newspaper in Indonesia, Republika, and built many modern Islamic schools and institutions. So interestingly, the elite of the New Order regime, I mean, under the President Suharto, support their Islamization project in exchange of gaining political support from Islamic groups. So the period of 1990s, Indonesian people usually call it this period as Ijo Royo Royo. It means that the massive Islamization of Indonesia supported by the state. It was so in this period, that what it is called hijabizations occur, because I think 1970s, yeah, until 1980s. So there is no Indonesian woman was wearing hijab. Yeah. So the wave of hijabizations began in 1990s, which currently, according to survey, has won, I think, about more than 40 million Indonesian women was wearing hijab. And the third group, it is kind of conservative modernists. There was a massive campaign to Islamize science. It is like, Islamization of knowledge or Islamization of science. Yeah, from 1980s until 2000. So there is three prominent figures: that Hidayat Nata Atmaja at the Bogor Agricultural Institute and the University of Indonesia as well, Imaduddin Abdurrahim, known as Bang Imad, at the Bandung Institute of Technology, and Professor I.M. Saifuddin. So their project is how to reject the modern Western knowledge whose structure is secular, liberal, and being in opposition to the religious doctrine of Islam. So they combine for the Islamization of science, Islamization of knowledge. Yeah. They are, that like international and local context. So I think in 1980s or 1990s, there is international context. There was a spirit of Islamization of science. I mean, the movement of Islamization of knowledge in several Muslim countries at the time, such as in Egypt, in Iran, as well as in Turkey. And then they reached Indonesia in 1990s. In Indonesia itself, because that the new order regime banned political activities on campus, yeah, so students channel their intellectual talents and desire by establishing student press. I still remember that I was a student at Bandung Islamic University at 1990s. So because that the government banned us to all of the political activities. So the student, they made a lot of discussions, and they made some, like a student magazines, student press, and academic and religious discussion. In this context, in addition to the emergence of Tarbiyah movement, the Tarbiyah movement, it is, I think in Indonesia, when we talk about Tarbiyah movement, that it is close to some like radical Muslim, yeah, because Tarbiyah movement, yeah, they combine for the Indonesian Sharia state as well as in Egypt or in Pakistan, in Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood, Ikhwanul Muslimin, and Pakistani Islamism, Jamaat Islami, that established by Abul Ala al-Maududi. So they also discuss about the Islamization of science to counter Western scholarism. So as mentioned above, they themselves are graduated of secular campuses in the West. I mean, their way of thinking is also logical and rational, and they use social product and modern technology. Yeah. So they adopt the Western modernity for launching their project of Islamic modernizations. And during the 2000 until 2010, so uh, emerged Indonesian Liberal Islamic Network. So we in bahasa Indonesia it is JIL, Jaringan Islam Liberal. So Indonesian Islamic Liberal Network. So this young man, Ulil Absar Abdallah, he came from the traditional Islamic boarding school, but he is very liberal at the time. Yeah, supported by Gunawan Muhammad. Gunawan Muhammad, the literary figure and journalist with nationalist liberal views. So they campaigned for liberal Islam and Islamic deconstruction as a continuation of Nur Khalis Majid liberal Islam, but with more current issues and in a provocative way. So their liberal Islamic issues draw from the critical Western tradition of Islamic scholarship and from Eastern liberal Muslim scholars like Abid Jabiri or Hassan Hanafi in Egypt or Nasser Hamid Abu Zaid of Egypt. So even that they take that liberal Islam from the East, from the Middle East, but it is the Middle Eastern liberal scholars. So as opposed to this modernist liberal in 2005 onward, a modernist neo-revivalist group emerged in institution called the INSIS, the Institute for the Study of Islamic Thought and Civilization. Actually, this organization for the first time based in Malaysia, Istak, Malaysia, and there are a lot of Indonesian students, yeah. And in Indonesia, they established INSIS, and they monthly, publish Islamia magazine. So I bring one Islamia magazine. So they also publish books and the monthly magazine Islamia, whose content argue in favor of the revival of Islamic civilization vis-a-vis the secular Western modernity. So I think that it is contrary with the other liberal modernists, for example, or revivalist modernists, for example. This kind of neo-revivalist modernists actively reject all discourses on Islamic studies that come from the West, such as hermeneutic issues. So now in Indonesian Islamic higher education, mostly Muslim students, they discuss about hermeneutic, this kind of Quranic studies, as well as they discuss about religious pluralism. But you know that the hermeneutic issues and religious pluralism, according to them, to be damaging to Islam. So it is very dangerous because it is contrary to Islamic teachings. So they reject all Islamic studies from Western Orientalists. So bias, reductive, and destructive are the keyword for all Islamic studies by Orientalists, according to the figures in INSIS and Islamia. So through the publication of books on Islamic studies and quarterly publication Islamia, they combine for how to be authentic Muslim or Islamic worldview and objective Islamic studies, the Islamization of knowledge, and as well de-Westernizations. So and also they would like that Indonesian Muslim people to be authentic Islamic civilization that originated from the Muslims themselves, not from the West, of course. So they hold the view that all secular structure of Western knowledge must be rejected in Islamic studies because they, as product of Western modernity, are in contradiction in Islam to Islamic values. And the last group, it is the group, as I call them, capitalist conservative modernist movement that combine for pop Islam in the sense that Islam as religious commodification. Yeah. So there are urban Muslims who emerge as new Islamic prince. So generally they are not members of Nahdlatul Ulama or Muhammadiyah, two biggest Indonesian Islam organization in Indonesia. But their genealogy, can be traced back to the Tarbiyah movement in campuses that went underground during New Orders. Yeah. So in the context of New Islam or New Santri is a bahasa Indonesia, who celebrate Islam everywhere, there is commodification of Islam or consuming Islam or branded Islam and the strengthening of Islamic identity that collaborate with capitalism. So this Indonesian Muslim preaching, we call it Ustad Celeb or celebrity Muslim preachings because they combine, in one hand, combine Islam as spiritual way of life, but in the other hand, they also combine for I mean, they work for capitalism, media industry, fashion industry, and hedonism. So, but theologically, they're close to Salafism. I mean, the theological view of them are close to Salafism or Wahhabism, and their political movement is like the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. So we have seen with the example of the six group above that modern Islamic institution in Indonesia, which do have a modern outlook in the Western science, have very diverse attitude in accepting modernity. Some are ambivalent, yeah. Some are mimicry, some are negotiating reception, some are critical adaptations, and some are rejecting it completely, like what happened in Islamia and in CIS. Yeah. And I would like to add uh, some critical review. So in the light of post-colonial context, I want to add this critical review. For example, why does throughout the 1970s until 1990s were Muslim modernist figures dominated by men? So where the women are the women in the kitchen at the time? Of course, no. Yeah. Likewise, the capitalist conservative modernist was also male. So did women not have, did women not have access to Islamic studies and knowledge? Of course they did. Yeah. And in the phenomenon of Nurholis Majid Islamic renewal, there is a circulation of power. Politically, Nurholis Majid ideas of Islamic renewal are very suitable for the new order project that is modernizing Indonesia. From religious perspective, Majid is considered very authoritative, mastering classical Islamic studies as well as modern humanities and social sciences, and also Nurholis Majid earned PhD in the United States under Professor Fazlur Rahman supervision. So in the context of the power of knowledge, Nurholis Majid has power over the text, interpreting text, and controlling their meanings. Also, don't forget that the Nurholis Majid ideas of Islamic revival, of Islamic renewal, are always covered by major magazines, yeah. So especially Tempo magazine, the largest scholar magazine in Indonesia at the time. Looking at the Islamia phenomenon, if we look at this Islamia phenomenon, the neo-revivalist modernists, in the context of post-colonial mentality, we can see a strong resistance. Yeah, for them, the West has carried out cultural and intellectual colonization, the imperialism of mind. So for them, being fried as a community, the Islamic community, the bonds of faith and brotherhood, emotions, feelings, and solidarity are their imagination to be authentic, although authenticity is a myth according to post-colonial theories. This myth, there is no something authentic. Yeah, so this group, yeah, they use language, Islamic languages. So when we open the magazine, so there are a lot of Islamic word, Islamic terminologies, Islamic, Islamic terminologies. The basis of which is the Islamic worldview as opposed to the word, languages, and terminologies used by secular Western. Yeah. And if we continue from 50 years of Indonesia's Islamization by a modernist group, so what are the results? What happened next? Does modern Islam really influence Indonesian Muslim? Are Indonesians becoming modern people in the sense that their mentality, yeah, as well as their work ethics are truly modern, like people in developed countries, or only half modern? So, so I was wondering about this. Yeah, the fact that Indonesia is a modern Muslim country, yes, it is true. Indonesia is a Muslim democracy with modern institutions, but uh, you know that it besides the very serious corruption practices and the culture of Indonesian people who find it difficult to practice advanced culture like in developed countries, there's also something surprising about religious understanding and its practice. When we see, you know, the current research of Professor Martin van Ruymesens, the Dutch scholar who expert in Indonesian Islam. So Martin found, you know, the new phenomenon of Indonesian Islam conservative turn. So the strengthening of religious conservatism and Islamic identity. So the main characteristic of the conservative turn are firstly claiming or monopolizing the absolute truth of Islam. Secondly, rejecting Indonesian pluralism. In fact, that Indonesia is very plural. It is, you know, that we have a dozen languages, religious belief, faith. We have 100 ethnicity. And more seriously, you know, uh, from the phenomenon of the conservative turn is combining hatreds against religious minority groups as well as non-Muslims. And in many cases, there was a lot of persecutions from the majority to the minority groups. Yeah. So, I mean, where is the influence of Islamic modernism that always push for cosmopolitanism, inclusivism, the openness and critical worldview? Yeah. So the second, along with the first, is the desire to implement Sharia at the state level, at the state level. So as I mentioned before that uh, State Islamic University, my campus, has doing survey in 2016 in 11 districts in 5 provinces in Indonesia show that around 78% of Indonesians agree with Islamic Sharia at the state level. So on national scale, the range is around 26% of them agree with Indonesian theocratic state. Yeah. In November 2020, so the Center of Islam and Society again released the result of national research on the narrative of religious understanding on social media. Islamic conservatism dominates online media discussion with a percentage of, 67%, followed by moderate group 22%, liberals only at 6%, and Islamists at 4%. Throughout the 2010 until 2019, conservative hashtag were the most popular in Indonesian media socials. So I would like to, I would like to see the phenomenon of the emergence of uh, Indonesian in the Islamic Indonesian conservatism with the thesis of Abi Jabiri. So Jabiri proposed a thesis about the distant the distant past, the near past, and the present and the futures. So according to Jabiri, a lot of that Islamic modernism or Islamic revival are failed, yeah, because first one, the Muslim modernists, they trapped in romanticizing the past, the golden age of Islam. So fundamentalist Salafis, but also that modernist groups includes in this in this fundamentalist Salafis. And secondly, liberal orientalistic Salafis, yeah, they embraces the modern Western worldview. Islam and Islamic studies are read empirically, logically, and rationally. Western positivism is used as reference to determine whether the vast Islamic culture is valid, scientific, or not. Some of the paradigms of liberal Islamic group are in this category. And thirdly, lab Marxist Salafis. So among three groups made by Abi Jabiri, Jabiri was skeptical of Islamic modernism and renewal movement even considering them to have failed. Yeah. Therefore, some scholars said that Islamic modernization, Islamic since Muhammad Abduh 200 years ago in Egypt, to Indonesian modernist figures, yeah, to Indonesian modernist movements that I have mentioned in these lectures, have never become mainstream. Some even said it failed. The dominant one has always been the conservative theological traditions, not the philosophical modernist traditions. Henry Lauzere, yeah, called Salafi modernist. I think Salafi modernist, yeah, it is close to modernist movement, yeah. Namely those who want to combine Islam with Western modernity, but their ideas didn't penetrate the wider community. So the main reason is because this movement, which consists of intellectual, only has loose alliances and loose affiliations, not as a solid movement. The Islamic issues of the modernists are also considered too high. I mean, on the other side, the Salafi groups or the majority of theological Muslim, including the Indonesian Muslim, they are solid, militant, and have strong fanaticism with the institution of the ulama. The issues of this majority group are also very very relevant because they are related to their daily religious life. And then, so I have to conclude this study. So although it is true that critical philosophical modernist Muslim group find it difficult to become mainstream, and they are also very challenging internal dynamics, there is something interesting in the context of the struggle between East and West. So the struggle between West and East, yeah, Indonesia and Southeast Asia in this case, in the last 50 years, to borrow from Sophie Bessis, gave rise to the term global recompositions and a new configurations. Western supremacy shows no sign of waning. Countries in the West still possess the power, wealth, and technology to extend their hegemony, but the resistance of some conservative modernist Indonesian Muslim groups, like Islamia or many others, yeah, as well as the model of adaptation and critical negotiation of others, paved the way to new Southeast Asia power that I think that West could not ignore. The universality and modernity of the West can no longer be seen as the only model for the future of humanity. This study finds a new synthesis in which the Western universality and modernity are expressed. I have to insist that the Western's modernity are expressed in new forms. In the case of Indonesian Muslim modernist movement, so expressed in new forms, in creative religious vernacular, and in a very challenging form of bricolage. So according to Martin Risebrough. Thank you.